Hey everybody, what's up? Jordan Tremaine here, it's me, with another book review for you. I like this book a lot. It brings me back to my childhood, a little bit of nostalgia going on in there. And the book for today's review is Watership Down by Richard Adams. Alright, so Watership Down is a book that's about rabbits on the surface. And to give you a little background to my experience with this book, in the 90s, back when I was a kid, there was this cartoon called Watership Down. It was like a cartoon movie. I watched it. It was, I don't know, maybe I just like weird movies when I was a little kid. Reminds me kind of like a Secret of Nim, if you ever seen that movie, or The Dark Crystal, like these children's movies that were like 80s, 90s type of movies, but they were like kind of dark and like things were dying and there was blood in them and stuff like that, or just weird stuff going on. I don't know. I ended up liking this movie, probably because I like rabbits. I think rabbits are cool. But I have wanted to read the book for a while because the book is often different than a movie, and I'm glad I did because the book is actually, I think, a much better story. I think sometimes when something is made into a movie, it takes away your ability to imagine it. It forces kind of all the visual aspects to be what the director wants it to be. Sometimes they cut out parts because the movie can only be so long, or they don't have enough good special effects. And so it doesn't really end up being what it should be. A lot of other times, a movie is not as good because parts of a book are meant to be poetic. Parts of a book are meant to be mysterious or something like that. But when you see what's going on, it becomes less poetic than actually reading words, because words are poetry, not video. Stuff like that. So I definitely recommend reading this book over watching the movie, but I do want to bring up that this book, even if you've never heard of it, is surprisingly well known. It's been a bestseller multiple times, I think in Europe. It was adapted into that cartoon movie I said in the 90s. It's been made into multiple cartoon TV series. Even Netflix recently made a series based on this book. So it's a story that's lasted for a while. I think it's a really good story, but not necessarily visually. I think it's a good story to read more. So what is the story about? Watership Down is the name of a place in the book. And to me, this book is very similar to Lord of the Rings, where there's like this ragtag band of misfits that has to go on some adventure to do something important. In the case of Lord of the Rings, it was like destroy the One Ring. And in the case of Watership Down, it's to go to a new place. I don't want to ruin the book for you, because I think it's a good book and I think you should read it. But yeah, the group of rabbits in this case, they go on an adventure, and this kind of is their story of struggle and their different plans and how they work and how they don't work throughout kind of their rabbit lives. Two things that I thought were really interesting about this book is, number one, Richard Adams, the dude that wrote the book, actually had this friend that he went and found that was like a rabbit expert that wrote some like book on like researching how rabbits act and stuff, became this dude's friend, and then like that guy helped the author understand how rabbits worked, and Adams incorporated some of that information into the book. So a lot of the stuff the rabbits are doing is what they actually do based on what humans have observed rabbits to do. So that's cool that there's some like research behind it, and it does give you an element of like how rabbits really act. I thought that was a cool little like side thing that you don't need to know but is interesting. And I think much like Lord of the Rings, there's a good deal of world building that goes into this book. This book happened, the setting for this book is a real place in the world, and the book, or my version of the book, goes over that. There's like a map. Here, I'll show you the map because I love pictures. See if I can find this map right in the beginning of the book. Oh, there it is. Ha! Boom. See, it has a map And this is like a map, I think, of somewhere in England or something like that, of where the story takes place. The story's not real because rabbits don't talk and all that stuff, but it takes place in a real place. And I thought that was cool. So there's some pictures in there. But also, there's this idea that like rabbits have this whole culture and society and background. They praise a certain rabbit god, and that rabbit god has to like deal with all these different things. They have their own culture setups and certain things they should do, certain things that are taboo, like all this stuff that's kind of like background into how rabbits live, that is kind of colored by that research from that dude, from Adam's friend, that about how rabbits really act in real life. And it plays into the decisions the rabbits make, the struggles they have, the interpersonal relationships and stuff like that. So I thought that was cool. And then on top of that, I think the story was just good. It was one of those books that I wanted to keep reading. It is a little graphic. I'm not super sure it was a kid's book, even though if you know the history of this, Adams originally came up with this as a story for his kids. But I don't know if it's a story for every kid. But I liked it a lot when I was a child. I like the book a lot now that I'm an adult. And I think I totally missed a lot of this as a kid. Maybe because I was younger. Maybe because it was a cartoon movie and I wasn't reading the book. So, you know, the movie's kind of like a condensed version, so you lose a lot of the content. But there's some concepts in here. Like if you're reading this book, I think a lot of books, especially storybooks, they're a story, but also there's other things. There's moral lessons you can learn. There's certain situations that you can kind of gain some vicarious experience off of and say like, oh, I see how those characters interacted. Maybe that's similar to something in my life or something I can apply because I live in situations too. And there's some stuff in here, particularly the part about the shining wire, that I thought was fantastic. The way it was written down and how it explained a certain concept, I thought it was like, woo, so good. So I think it's worth reading it for interesting concepts. It's worth reading it because it's a fun adventure story that's interesting to read, and it's not very difficult. There's a bunch of made-up words in here because there's this like rabbit language, I think called Lapine or something like that, where some of the words are rabbit words, but they're clearly explained. There's a glossary in the back in case you ever forget it, and it's not a big deal. But other than that, like almost all the words are like regular words, and yeah, I think it's a good story to read, has good suspense and stuff like that, and I'd recommend it. It's something that's an actual real book. It has some like thickness to it, and it has some content in it, so it's not like a article in a magazine or something. It's like 500 pages, but you could get through this pretty easily because it's interesting and it's not very difficult. So once again, the book is Watership Down, one of my childhood stories that I really liked, and now it's a book that I've actually read, and I haven't just watched the movie, I've read the book too, and I think the book is a lot better, and I would recommend that you read it, not only because it's about rabbits, and rabbits are cool, but because it's a good story. But yeah, this has been Jordan Tremaine Book Reviews. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.